everyone, my name is Judy and welcome to my class today. Today I'm going to share with you a very simple recipe on how to make some Asian soft buns which I call the cheese twist. It is a very easy method to follow, and I'm going to use what is known in the bakery world as the straight dough method. Now, inside my mixing bowl, I've got some high protein flour, about 12 to 13% bread flour, and I'm going to put in some fine sugar into the mixing bowl, some salt. Okay, you can use your the sort of salt that you use at home, so just some salt, and of course very importantly would be the yeast. Now yeast you can buy an all-purpose yeast like this dry yeast. Now this yeast is available also at our school, or you probably can find this in a lot of supermarkets. Now I use self-instant yeast, and I'm going to place the yeast into the mixing bowl together with the dry ingredients. Usually when we add the yeast into the flour, is usually 1 to 2% of the flour weight. Now what we do is we mix all the dry ingredients together in this manner, so they'll just mix them together, disperse. Now when you use instant yeast, it can be added to it instantly, so this is the convenience of it. Now, and what we're going to do will be to put in all the wet ingredients such as eggs, okay, some cold water. When it's warm and it's very hot, the colder the water will be better. The reason is when it's warm, the yeast will grow very quickly. In good breads, we want the bread to grow slowly, to have a good flavor, and flavor takes time. Now here I've got all my wet ingredients, including some dairy cream from Anchor. Alright, so I put in my dairy cream. Now the use of the dairy cream adds a certain richness to the bread, which is very pleasant. We use a lot of Anchor dairy cream in our breads, in our cakes, and lots of pastries. So what I do is I use a dough hook, and we'll put it in to knead my bread dough. Of course you can also use your hands, but it's going to be quite time consuming, and you have to keep everything cold. Now here I'm going to knead on a low speed, so we mix first. Alright? Now we mix for about maybe 2 minutes before we change the speed to speed 2. Alright? Now in bread making, it's very important to control the temperature of the final bread dough. Of course, in our school for our professional courses, we teach our students how to calculate the water temperature, so that the water that you add into the dough will help you to achieve the final dough temperature of about 28-29 degrees Celsius. But a very simple rule to follow when you're at home is to add more ice, meaning that if you have 100 grams of water, you could take part of it and replace it with ice, because when ice melts, it turns into water. The more ice is in the total mixture, the colder will the liquid be. And when you add it after the kneading, you will get a cool dough of perhaps 28 or 29 degrees, around that. Okay? So I knead. Now when do I stop kneading? I stop kneading only when the dough has left the bowl, from the mixing bowl. If you take a closer look, inside my bowl, you can see it has already started to leave the sides of the bowl. I need to knead it to about 60 to 70% developed before I add in my unsalted Anchor butter. Okay? Alright, now you see it has already left the bowl, and the mixture is quite stretchable. Alright, now at this point I add in my unsalted Anchor butter. Alright. Now I love the flavor of Anchor butter because if you take a look, the butter has a very beautiful natural yellow tinge, and the colors probably because the cows that produce the milk are grass-fed. So happy cows produce happy colors and happy flavors in the butter. Alright, so I knead everything together. Now I knead until the dough becomes smooth and becomes developed. Now in bread making, the word develop basically means you knead till the dough is stretchable, until the gluten is developed. And I'm going to show you how to tell when the gluten is developed. Alright, so at this time I'm still kneading the dough. Now if you see the butter coming to the sides of the bowl in this manner, if you take a look at the sides of the bowl, you have the butter. Now what I do is that I stop the machine and I scrape the butter down so that it's all mixed together into the dough. Okay, so alright, so I continue with the kneading. Alright, the total time for kneading using the machine is probably about 10 to 12 minutes. But to be a good baker, don't follow the time. It is better to learn to study all the signs of when the dough is ready. So I will share with you in a short while, okay, to be able to tell that. And this bread is called cheese twist. Later on, I'm going to wrap the dough, okay, with some cheese twist, with some slices of delicious Anchor cheese. Now this particular cheese, I'm using the high calcium cheddar cheese slices. Now this is easily available in all supermarkets. It's delicious, not too salty, and has the beautiful flavors of delicious cheese. So in this case, this is of course a product of Fonterra by Anchor Foods, and it's been around since 1886. Wow, 1886, that's a long time. Okay, for a brand that can last for so long, surely it has stood the test of time. Okay, so now I'm going to prepare some cheese twist. Now what I do is I'm going to prepare some slices of cheese in preparation for the cheese twist in a short while. Okay, so I've got my, as a chef, sometimes, you know, our meals are very rushed because we are busy in the kitchen getting things done. I have slices of this cheese in my refrigerator at home. So when I'm hungry or I think I need a quick breakfast, I take a slice of cheese and I just eat it. And it provides all the calcium that is needed in my diet. So this is a good choice. Okay, now as I said, the kneading will take about 10 to 12 minutes, but in the meantime I'm going to slice some cheeses. Okay, alright, I've got these, and cut the slices of cheese into halves. Later on I'm going to incorporate these cheese pieces into the bread. So that makes a very delicious combination. Soft Asian buns with delicious cheese with just the right amount of saltiness in it. Okay, I cut it into half. My cheese slices cut into half. So each half will be for each piece of bread. Okay. Now because this is quite a big mixer, sometimes when the dough is not that much, sometimes we have to increase the speed a little so that you can knead the dough more efficiently. Okay, although it is true that sometimes when you knead on very high speed, it does make the dough a little bit warmer. So that's when we have to be quite sensitive to it. But now remember I said we need to knead the dough until it's quite developed. If you listen carefully, it has actually some slapping sound. Okay, I'm going to increase the speed just a little bit and see if you can hear it. You hear like a slapping sound. So this is actually the dough calling you. Now, when you hear the slapping sound and you notice that your dough is smooth, take a piece of dough in your with your hand, and if you find that it's a bit sticky, you could dust your fingers with a little bit of flour or put a little bit of oil and take a piece of dough and stretch the dough in this manner. Now, when the dough is able to stretch thinly, then the dough is developed. Now, this is known as the gluten window test. Okay, for soft buns, it is very important to pay attention to this step until the dough is developed. Okay, all right. Now, when the dough is developed already, I'm going to just spray my table with a little bit of oil. Okay, all right. Otherwise, just with a little bit of oil so that it doesn't stick to the table. Alright, you can see it's stretchable, elastic, and smooth. Alright, now it's a very enjoyable feeling when you make bread. Okay, so we place it on the table and we round the dough in this manner. Now just simply pat it into shape, round it, and set aside for about half an hour covered. Alright, so you can either cling wrap, just slightly cover with a plastic, or you can even use your mixing bowl and turn it upside down to cover the dough. Alright, fortunately, I already have a piece of dough that is rested for half an hour. So I'm going to use that dough for the rest of my demonstration. You see, this dough has already rested just about half an hour. During the half an hour, what happens is the yeast eats the food, converts the complex sugars to simple sugars, and give out carbon dioxide. And because the dough was kneaded very smoothly, when the yeast blows out carbon dioxide, the dough will expand. Okay? So if you take a look, how do I know whether it's ready? Just poke your fingers into the dough, and you can feel that it's now a bag full of air, of carbon dioxide in the dough. Now, when we have reached this stage, we are ready to divide it. Now, just as a form of comparison, this was the dough that was just freshly kneaded just now. Okay, you can see when you do that, you can feel that it's quite heavy and quite compact, but this dough has rested, so this is now ready for dividing. Now, what you need will be weighing scale, and then you can divide your dough into 60 grams pieces each. So after this stage, okay, I'm going to divide my dough into 60 grams. Etc. etc. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to remove these, and the next step of the dough would be, next step of the bread making process would be to round the dough. Now just take a piece of the dough and round it in this manner. Now to do this, it's very important that you do not oil your table too much or flour too much. So just simply do this, okay? Cup your fingers, make sure your hands are all in contact with the table. All right, just round like this, and you can do this. Okay, so just round like this. After a while, when you become more familiar with the process, you can even round with 2 hands. Okay, now I assure you, bread making is very therapeutic. It's very tactile. Your hands are involved, and you can feel the dough, you can smell the aromas of bread making, and the best part of it, you can eat it. Okay, so you can do that. Now if you find rounding the dough a little bit daunting, there is another method which you can do. You could sort of stretch the dough like this, stretch it, fold to the center, stretch it, fold to the center. It's okay if you make a few pieces of bread every day, but if like us, well, in our bakery, if we use this method, it's going to take us a long time. So we round our doughs, or sometimes we have a dough divider. Okay, but that's for our professional students or when we are doing production. Now, once this is done, we let it rest for about 5 minutes just to relax the dough before we incorporate our delicious anchor cheese slices into the dough. Alright, now I have prepared a baking tray and line my baking tray with a piece of silk pad. Okay, so okay, now I also, when I was rounding the dough, I sort of put it in a sequence so that I would know which would be the first piece of dough I start with. Okay, so again, at this point, I'm going to just spray the table just a little bit with some grease, but not too much. And there I take my dough, the smooth side down, flatten it lightly, use a rolling pin, sort of roll it this way. Okay, and put a slice of cheese, half piece of cheese. Okay, so just now, if you should shrink a little bit, don't worry, just let the dough relax a little bit. Now, at this point, sort of flatten this slightly. Now, what you do is curve it like this. Okay, roll it. All right, flatten both sides. Then join north and south together. Put it like this, sort of push the dough together. Place it over here. Flatten. Now then you take a pair of scissors, and what you do is on the long side, lengthwise, make a cut. Okay, snip it. Okay, exposing the delicious cheese like this. Okay. Okay, like this. So I'm going to do more. Smooth side down. Flatten. Use a rolling pin, roll it like this. So flatten the sides here. Place the cheese here. Alright, let's start rolling it like the way, okay? Alright, like the way you roll perhaps other your cakes or Swiss roll, and then the two ends of the dough, pinch it together so it meets in the center, turn it back to this shape, and then flatten again. All right, make 2 snips like this, sort of press and open it up like this. Okay, and etc. So we repeat the whole thing until the tray is covered with all your breads. Then you place it in a warm and moist place. At home, you could put it into the cupboards or put in a container and just cover with a lid. When we are living when it's quite warm in Singapore, the dough will still grow because yeast thrives in warm and moist temperature. Yeast actually is a living organism belonging to the fungal kingdom, and so it will, as I mentioned, it will start to convert the sugars into simple sugars, giving out carbon dioxide flavor that goes into the making of the bread. So, well, in our bakery, in our school, we have what is known as a proofer, where we can actually control the temperature as well as the humidity. So let me just show you my proofer now, and okay, we place it here until the dough almost triples in size. And here I've got some dough which I left in the proofer much earlier. Now proofing will take roughly about an hour or so. Alright, we need to be very patient. Now if you touch the dough, this dough is actually very soft. It means the yeast has already eaten the food provided in the bread dough, and now it's ready for us to glaze with eggs, put more cheese. And what I did was I actually took some of these anchor cheese slices in this manner. Okay, so whatever is left behind in here, I put it together and I cut it into strips. This will be used as a decor for my product, okay, later. Now you can either use a knife, or you could use a, you know, like a metal, like this. And you can get the kids involved in this, so you can get all the cheese strips, okay, like this, and then we can use it. Now I'm going to break an egg into one of my bowls here. Okay, and I have a brush, so I'm going to just sort of break up the egg. You can of course use a fork. Sometimes we add a pinch of salt so that the yolk and the egg whites can mix a little bit better. Okay, so just beat it up like this, and very gently place the buns with the egg. Maybe be gentle, don't press, don't stress the bread dough. Just sort of like caress the dough with your brush. Just do like this. Okay, think of happy things, brush like this. Just give it. Now don't use too much force, be gentle with the dough. It's got all the air trapped in the bread dough, so you know you don't want it to collapse. So as I said, this is a very soft buns which you can prepare for your family. But the secret is, of course, that when you're kneading the dough, pay attention to the kneading. Make sure that it develops the dough, and of course you must have anchor sliced cheese, okay, to complete the entire process. So now here we have, I'm brushing it, you see, with so much love and tender loving care. How can my bread not taste good? Alright, now here I've got the cheese as I mentioned, so I just place more cheese slices here. Now at the beginning of my before I started on this entire process, I had already turned on my oven. Now this will take only 10 to 12 minutes to bake, and the baking temperature is 200 degrees top heat and bottom heat. So in your home ovens, just make sure your oven is heated top heat and bottom heat. Okay, now this, as I said, lots of calcium so that we can have strong bones, healthy bones, whether for the young or the not so young like me. Okay, all right, so we just place them here, and you can get your family involved too. Get the kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews to help in doing this. And if you want it to look a little bit more attractive, you can have some chopped red capsicum, sort of, you know, just to give it a bit of a color, like this. Okay, like this. You can actually even make put some mixed vegetables like carrot, green peas for color if you want. Okay, like this. Now, also, if you like, okay, you can also pipe some chili sauce, tomato sauce, put these in a piping bag and cut a small hole. Like for this side, can just do like this, okay, to give it a bit of a color and even more flavor. Okay. Alright. This will blend beautifully with the Anchor sliced cheese. But without them, eaten on its own, the cheese is delicious on its own. Okay? And to add to the richness, I've got even mayonnaise, but that's optional. Okay, don't worry about the calories. Huh? I always think in life it's better to be fat and happy than to be sour and slim. Now, here I've got my buns here, and I'm going to place it in the oven. Alright, my oven has been already preheated, and it will take about 10 to 12 minutes when it's ready. Okay, so I'm going to let you, and after that we just need to enjoy these beautiful breads. Okay. This will take 10 to 12 minutes. And lo and behold, the buns are ready after 12 minutes of baking. Alright, I wish you could smell the aroma, but here we have the buns, beautiful golden brown. And take a look at the back. The back is just light brown and it's soft and light as air. As promised, it's a soft Asian bun, but the process of making it, one has to be quite aware of all the steps needed. So this is super soft, right? And I'm gonna place the buns over here. Okay. And this is the mayonnaise ones. Okay, let me just. Okay. And I hope you will enjoy these buns as you make them with your loved ones. Thank you and see you again. Remember to head right to the nearest supermarket, get a packet of Anchor sliced cheese. Thank you.